Good morning, all of you. In today's session, we are going to discuss about CSIR NET GRF Chemical Science June 2017 Part C, Series 2. Okay. So, in the earlier session, we completed 61 to 70 total, consisting 10 questions in the single series. Now we entered into Series 2, where question number 71 to 80 will be discussed in today's session, right? So this previous year question paper discussion of CSIR NET GRF Chemical Science will very much helpful for you because it is the standard paper in order to prepare for any competitive examinations consisting chemistry questions, so that for all competitive examinations and even entrance examination, it must be helpful for you. Let us enter into our actual concept. Here is the series 2 of Part C Chemical Science June 2017, consisting 71 to 80 questions. Let us discuss question number 71. P31 NMR spectrum of 2, 2, 6, 6, N4, P4, Cl4, NMe2 taken 4 is expected to show. Okay, so here P31 NMR. So NMR is active for I value will not be 0. What is the selection rule for NMR? If angular momentum I value non-zero, those molecules are said to be NMR active. Here P31 is also one of the element which is NMR active. So P31 spectrum, generally proton NMR, C13 NMR will be recorded in order to predict the structure of compounds. So if labeled phosphorus was taken, in this case P31 NMR spectrum is also possible, and it is possible to predict the structure of phosphorus containing compounds. In this P31 NMR spectrum, 2, 2, 6, 6, N4, P4, Cl4, NMe2 taken 4 is expected to show. This is the structure of the compound. For this compound, how many peaks are possible? So how many P31 NMR signals will be obtained in the spectrum, we have to predict. If we see the structure of compound, each phosphorus is associated with 2 secondary amine functional groups. Here, these two phosphorus are containing 2 secondary amine, NMe2 functional groups are there, and these two phosphorus are associated with 2 chloro functional groups. Hence, we can bifurcate these two phosphorus atoms into 2 sets. Entire 4 phosphorus can be bifurcated, segregated into 2 sets. Those who are containing NMe2 groups are regarded as one kind, and accompanied by chlorofunctional groups are regarded as any other kind. So in this way, 2 types of phosphorus atoms, 2 environments are present within the given compound. Hence, we can apply 2ni+1 formula for one set and also for second set. Let us apply for set 1. Let us assume these two are said to be a type of phosphorus atom. When we apply 2ni+1 formula, so 2N stands for phosphorus atom. So A type of phosphorus, how many atoms are there within the compound? 2 phosphorus atoms are there. So N value becomes 2, and I, angular momentum value for phosphorus. For phosphorus, angular momentum value is half only, right? 2 into half plus 1. Okay. So numerator, denominator 2 get cancelled. 2 plus 1, it will be 3. 2ni+1 formula 3. That means, so A type of phosphorus atoms are able to exhibit triplet. So 3 peaks will be appeared for that one. And let us calculate for B type of phosphorus atom. For B set of phosphorus atom, 2ni+1 formula will be employed. 2 into 1 by 2 plus 1 formula. So same formula will be applied, because again B set of phosphorus atom, how many are there? 2 phosphorus atoms are there. So that 2 into 1 by 2. 2 get cancelled. Again we will get 3. So how many triplets are possible? So for A set, 1 triplet. For B set, second triplet is possible. So we will obtain 2 triplets. For question number 71, option number 1 will be the right answer. Let us move on to question number 72. The number of bonding molecular orbitals and the number of available skeletal electrons in B6H6-2 respectively. Okay, whenever this B6H6-2 compound is given, we have to predict the bonding molecular orbitals and skeletal electron count present in the compound. 2 different formulas can be applied so that we will predict these 2 parameters. So in order to find out bonding molecular orbital, the empirical formula will be N+1. N stands for number of atoms present in this. How many boron atoms are there? 6 boron atoms are there. So N value will be 6. So 6 plus 1, it will be 7. So bonding orbitals present in this given compound B6H6 minus 2 will be 7. 7 bonding molecular orbitals are there. In order to predict skeletal electron count, the formula will be 2n plus 2. 2n plus 2 formula can be employed. 2 into how many boron atoms? 6 boron atoms are there plus 2. 2 into 6 plus 2, 12 plus 2, it will be 14. So 14 will be the skeletal electron count. So 7 bonding molecular orbital and 14 skeletal electrons will be there. Hence, option number 1 will be the right answer for question number 72. Let us move on to question number 73. The compound N2F2 has 2 isomers. Choose the correct option from the following. Okay, N2F2 is a kind of molecule existing in 2 isomeric form. These 2 are said to be geometrical isomers. When 2 lone pair of electrons on the same phase of this planar structure, this is said to be cis1, and both are oriented in the 2 different anti with respect to each other. This is a trans dinitrogen difluoride. Okay, when we consider this cis fluorodinitrogen, so what happens? It can be bifurcated by imaginary plane, which is inserted in the vertical manner. Hence, we can assign this as a vertical plane. So sigma vertical plane will be there. Sigma vertical plane will be there in this molecule. And in the second molecule, in the trans conformation, we have trans. So we have trans conformation. It will be inserted as a horizontal plane. This horizontal plane will give the 2 identical halves. If we cut the molecule in this horizontal manner, so 2 identical halves will be obtained. So vertical plane is one kind, horizontal plane is another kind. Okay, cis dinitrogen difluoride is accompanied by vertical plane. Trans dinitrogen difluoride is accompanied by horizontal plane. Hence, so isomer 1 horizontal and isomer 2 will be vertical plane will be there. So option number 3 is the right answer for question number 73. Question number 74. Consider the following statements for metallothioneins. These metallothioneins are exhibiting such a kind of structure. So thionine stands for sulfur moieties are associated with this one. These are used to capture the soft metal. The main function of these metallothioneins are they are used to capture the soft metals. Metallothioneins are the family of small, highly conserved cysteine-rich. Cysteine protein will be present and cysteine amino acid units are present in this. And they are consisting low molecular weight ranges from 500 to 1400 monomeric units in this. So metal binding proteins, these are the type of metal binding proteins and important for zinc, copper, selenium homeostasis and protection against oxidative stress, buffering against toxic heavy metals. They are mainly used to capture the soft metals, especially zinc, copper, selenium. In addition, we have in the cadmium, mercury, silver, arsenic. Such a kind of metals will be captured in this kind of skeletal structure. And these are cysteine rich kind of proteins and made up of low molecular weight monomers, right? Let us see what are the important statements which are explaining these metallothioneins. They contains about 30% cysteine residues. It is the correct statement only. And they prefer to bind soft metal ions like cadmium, mercury, and zinc. Correct one only. So they are having strong affinity towards such metals, and such a kind of sulfur able to form bond with this zinc, just like hydrogen bond. Here also sulfur bonds, thioether bonds are possible with the soft metals like cadmium, mercury, zinc, and moreover copper, selenium, silver, arsenic. These metals also possible to bind with this metallothioneins. In either they are involved in the electron transfer. No, this is not the work, this is not the function of metallothioneins. The main purpose of metallothioneins are homeostasis and also oxidative stress can be relieved, and also buffering against toxic metals. Toxic metal removal is possible, but not electron transfer. This option cannot be right for metallothioneins. They are low molecular weight proteins. Yes, they are low molecular weight, ranges from 500 to 1400 monomeric units are present within the molecule. So option number A, B, and D are the correct statements. That's the reason why for question number 74, option number 2 will be the right answer, right? Metallothioneins are the long chain polymeric units and low molecular weight, 500 to 1400 will be there. Cysteine units are present around 30% within the skeletal structure and are used to capture cadmium, mercury, silver, arsenic, and also even zinc, copper, selenium, especially used in against working against toxic heavy metals, right? So option number 2 will be the right answer for question number 74. Let us discuss about 75. Consider the following statement for deoxyhemoerythrin and deoxyhemocyanin. This is a question from bioinorganic chemistry, where these two are the units, these two are the moieties, these two are the pigments, we can say, which used to carry the oxygen and store the oxygen as well, right? Oxygen carriers and oxygen storage agents within the living organisms. One is hemoerythrin, second is hemocyanin. They're asking about deoxyhemoerythrin, deoxyhemocyanin. When these two compounds were taken, what are the right statements with respect to these two? First one is they are involved in oxygen transport in the biological system. Exactly. So here, hemoerythrin is a kind of non-heme. So hemoerythrin is a kind of, hemocyanin is a non-heme, hemoerythrin is a kind of hemoprotein and which is present in marine invertebrates, especially sipanculates and also brachiopods. These are consisting such kind of hemoerythrin pigment. So it is the iron containing protein only, iron containing pigment only. So where deoxygenated form we have so deoxygenated form we have iron existing in +2 oxidation state, and they are surrounded by histidine units. Histidine units will be there, and also this carboxylate units are working like a bridging agent between two irons, and one hydroxy mu hydroxy group is also present in between. So this is about deoxyhemoglobin, and essentially it is used for the oxygen transportation. It used to circulate the oxygen in the entire biological systems of these marine invertebrates, right? And even storage of oxygen is also another additional function of these compounds. Deoxygenated state, it existing in violet color, right? So this is the statement number 1, correct answer only. They contain 2 metal centers in their active site. So this is applicable to first one, but in the second one, it may not be applicable. Hemocyanin is the kind of oxygen transporting agent, correct one only. And especially marine invertebrates, molluscans and arthropods and consisting this hemocyanins. Okay, when we take snail, that blade is in blue color because of the existence of copper. Copper as a central metal, so that blade is existing in blue color. Copper +2 is present in that. But the central metal, 2 metal atoms may not be present in that. This statement is not correct one, right? So for hemoerythrin, we have 2 metal, but for hemocyanin, 2 metals may not be present in that. Active site metal centers are bridged by amino acid residues. No. So amino acid residues are present, but these amino acid residues are terminal amino acids, not bridging. So terminal amino acids are present in the 2 edges. Bridging are nothing but which are connecting 2 metals. So these are connected by hydroxy carboxylates, but not with the histidine units. Hence we can't say amino acids are not a bridging ligands in this pigment. They prefer to bind only for one oxygen per active site. No. When you consider here, so here iron linked with 2 oxygen atoms, here iron linked with 1 oxygen atom. So 1 metal, 1 oxygen is not correct statement. 1 metal, 1 oxygen, 1 metal, 2 oxygens also possible. That's why statement number 4 is also not a right answer for this statement. Deoxyhemoerythrin, deoxyhemocyanin Both are involved in oxygen transportation in the biological system. This is the exact statement for question number 75. So option number 1 will be the right answer. Let us move on to question number 76. Consider the following statements for octahedral complexes. 3 octahedral complexes are given. All 3 complexes are consisting chromium, and in all the complexes, chromium is in +3 oxidation state. But only the difference is chromium hexafluoride is a monodentate ligand. Tris oxalato is a bidentate. Tris ethylene diamine is also bidentate ligand. So all 3 complexes are octahedral in nature. All 3 complexes are +3. Chromium is in nature. All 3 complexes are of D3 configuration are in nature. So let us see what are the statements which are relevant with these 3 complexes. In all 3 complexes, D3 system is there, so that vacant sites are available, so they are conveniently participated in DD transitions. Lower level, octahedral T2G will be the lower level, EG will be the higher level energy. Triply degenerated to doubly degenerated energy transition is possible. And compound 1, chromium hexafluoride, being it is a monodentate, it exists in this octahedral complex form, and this excitation requires lesser energy because all are single bonds, all are monodentate, all are freely excited from ground state to excited. That's why 14,900 centimeter inverse wavelength is sufficient for this chromium hexafluoride complex transition. When we are taking tris accelerator complex, where chelating ligand will be there. Let us observe that complex also. So here this is called tris accelerator complex. In this tris accelerator complex, chromium bonded with this cyclic form. Whenever chelating ligands are present, that impart high stability for the complex. In case of that high stability, the excited electrons requires higher energy. That's the reason why compared to compound number 1, compound number 2 is associated with 17,500 is the DD transition energy, right? So that's the reason why, because of chelation, because of bidentate nature of oxalato, their energy transition will be higher. When we consider ethylene diamine, let us see the structure of this tris ethylene diamine chromium complex. This is the complex. Chromium is associated with the 3 ethylene diamine units in this manner. Again, it is a kind of octahedral, and the chelating ligands are present around the chromium, right? Whenever these ethylene diamine units are present, so where the complex is still more stable when compared to oxygen. In both the cases, we are having bidentate ligand and chelation is possible, but comparatively, ethylene diamine stability will be still higher because nitrogen, when donating electrons, these bonds are very stable. In case of this one, somewhat electron repulsions will be originated because of oxygen high electronegativity. That's the reason why comparatively ethylene diamine complex excitation requires still higher energy. That is provided within the problem. So 21,800 centimeter inverse, which is given for chromium tris ethylene diamine complex. Okay. So here hexafluoro, being it is monodentate, highly convenient, labile for the excitation of lower energy level to higher, so that 14,900, followed by oxalato 17,500. For ethylene diamine, it will be given as 21,800 centimeter inverse energy for DD transition, right? This is the right statement. Their spin only magnetic moment values are same. So when we observe, so D3 system, in case of D3 system, electrons will be appeared in this manner because as electrons will be removed, chromium exists in chromium +3 in 3D3 configuration, so that electrons will be 3 only. Even it is high spin, low spin, in both the cases electrons will be 3 only, because fourth electron we can go with the deciding factor, like high spin, low spin, and magnetic moment variation is there. Till D3 system splitting, a lower energy level T2G, only 3 electrons are minimum, right? So there is no any other possibility. Even it is high spin, low spin, till D3 system, magnetic moment remains the same, right? So when we apply the spin-only magnetic moment formula, under root n into n plus 2 can be employed. N stands for number of unpaired electrons present in this. Here, this D3 system is having 3 unpaired electrons. Under root 3 into 3 plus 2. It will become under root 18. Under root 18 is nothing but 3.87 Bohr magnetons. This is a magnetic moment of chromium hexafluorocomplex. When we consider for chromium tris accelerator complex, in this tris accelerator also 3 unpaired electrons are there. So option magnetic moment value remains the same because 3 odd electrons, even though it is of a low spin complex. But after 3 electrons, only 4th electron will decide high spin nature. But for up to 3 electrons, it will be common for high spin and low spin. Occupation will remain same and magnetic moment will remain the same. That's the reason why under root n into n plus 2 formula employed and 3.87 Bohr magnetons value is provided for this complex also. For third complex, it will be chromium trisethylene diamine complex was taken. Again, chromium oxidation state is +3. And D3 system, it will be in 3 unpaired electrons. Hence, there is no change in the magnetic moment. For all the complexes, it is calculated as magnetic moment as 3.87. So spin-only magnetic moment value remains same for all the complexes. This is also the correct statement. 2 of them are optically active in nature. Correct. Because whenever chelation is there, chelation is used to bend in this manner. Because in order to attain the stability, all the chelating ligands are not staying in the plane. So they are in the twisted form. So that is clearly mentioned within the problem. First, let us discuss about chromium hexafluorocomplex. This is the octahedral complex. Chromium is associated with plane of symmetry. You can insert a vertical plane in this, diagonal plane in this, horizontal plane in this. In all the cases, you can bisect into exactly 2 equal halves. Vertical plane is able to bisect the molecule into 2 halves. Diagonal plane also bisect the molecule into 2 halves. Horizontal plane also bisect the molecule into 2 halves. So here plane of symmetry is the common symmetry element. And even center of symmetry. From the center, you can extend hypothetical lines so that identical molecules are formed. And here also center of symmetry, here also center of symmetry. So this is associated with plane of symmetry and even center of symmetry, so that optical activity may not be possible for this one. Whenever we see this molecule, in this molecule, see, you can clearly observe one of the ethylene oxalato ligand when taken, one of the oxygen coming from above plane, another oxygen coming from below plane, being it is a larger functional group, it is not possible to occupy 2 ends in the same plane. So one is coming from the top edge and another from the bottom edge, so that it is in the twisted form. We can't apply any symmetry element for this one, being it is unsymmetrical. You can clearly mention it is optically active in nature. So this exists in 2 isomeric forms by changing their position, so that both the isomers are said to be optically active in nature, being all the symmetry elements are absent in this molecule. And even trisethylene diamine, you can clearly again here you can find twisted bonds here. One of the amine is linking from upper edge and another amine is linking from lower edge, so that we can't apply any symmetry element. Center of symmetry may not be possible, a plane of symmetry may not be possible. We can't bisect a molecule by means of any symmetry element. So chelating ligands, when present, most probably there is a possibility of optical activity. So both the compounds like oxalato and ethylene diamine imparting optical activity, and where fluoroligands are present, their optical activity will not be there. 2 of them are optical isomers is the correct statement. All of them show Jahn-Teller distortion. What is the condition for Jahn-Teller distortion? In order to exhibit the Jahn-Teller distortion, unsymmetric T2G, unsymmetric orbitals are required. Either unsymmetrical T2G or unsymmetrical EG are present, then only we can say Jahn-Teller distortion is possible. But whenever we observe all the complexes, it is the system of D3. D3 nothing but T2G3 will be there. This is what a half-filled system. So it is called symmetric. In all 3 complexes, D3 and T2G3 is the configuration. Hence, we can say complex is symmetric. For symmetric complex, John-Teller distortion will not be employed. John-Teller distortion is applied whenever T2G or EG orbitals are unsymmetrically filled. So option number D will not be a right statement for these chromium complexes. For question number 76, A, B, C, 3 are employed, so that option number will be the right answer. Let us move on to question number 77. In question number 77, the addition of sodium borohydride to neta5CpFe, neta6C6H6 whole positive. Okay, so this is the kind of organometallic complex again. It is a kind of organometallic complex. So, iron, which is surrounded by two ring compounds. One side we have cyclopentadienyl anion. Another side we have benzene ring. So cyclopentadienyl anion ring is contributing 5 electrons to the bond with iron, and this neta6 benzene is contributing 6 electrons. Neta stands for number of electrons released to the central metal. Upon treating with sodium borohydride is the better reducing agent, which used to release H minus. Whenever H minus is added to monopositive complex, it will become neutral. So charge will not be present on the complex. Charged complexes will be discarded from the options, right? And one of the hydrogen should be increased. One of the hydrogen should be increased. Here the complex remains same, no change. That's why not correct. So completely benzene replaced, not correct. So here Cp and C6H6 not changed. Hydrogen directly attached to iron, not correct. So in this one, Cp is there, C6H6. Hydrogen is not at all added. So this is not correct. Only the possibility is option number 4. Let us see how it is possible. And this is a kind of organometallic compound where iron attached with one cyclopentadienyl, in either side benzene ring. 6 electrons contributed by benzene, 5 electrons contributed by cyclopentadienyl anion, and whole positive charge is there on the complex. Now it is treated with sodium borohydride, being it able to release H minus. H minus added to one of the carbon center, and it will originate carbene ion. So this carbene will be resonated, delocalized within the complex, canonical structures will be obtained, and finally we can assume this is a resonance hybrid, where we can get one of the hydrogen added compound within the structure, right? One of the hydrogen will be added, so that the correct option will be neta5Cp iron, neta5C6H7. One of the hydride ion is added to this benzene ring. For question number 77, option number 4 will be the right answer. So fourth option is the correct statement. Let us move on to question number 78. Mu effective of iron S2CnEt2 taken thrice changes with temperature with the involvement of 2 electronic states. The states are, so mu effective, right? So mu effective value, magnetic moment value can be calculated by 3 different methods. One is spin only magnetic moment, second is spin orbit coupling magnetic moment, third is mu effective magnetic moment. For these iron complexes, mu effective values can be varied. For low spin complexes, the value will be 0. For high spin complex, the value will be 4.9. Why that kind of change is observed, they're asking. What is the reason for there is a change in mu effective values in this? Here, 2 factors are there. One is temperature dependent factor. Second is ligand linkage factor. Ligand linkage factor in the sense, here we have 2 ligands. One is NCS, second is SCN. So ligand NCS can be either linked with nitrogen or sulfur directly, so that linkage will be changed, so that low spin high spin variation will be possible. Low spin high spin variation will be possible, right? So in case of low spin ligand is there, in case of low spin ligand is there, all the electrons are resided in T2G shell only. So T2G shell ligands will be there. This is the Orgel diagram. So low spin complex only electrons are contributed in T2G shell. Whenever the electron spin will be changed from complex is changed from low spin to high spin, means so whenever it is in binding in the form of NCS, this is said to be a low spin complex. And when sulfur directly linked to iron, there is a possibility of high spin complex. In low spin complex, all the electrons are contributed in T2G shell. There is no excitation. EG shell electrons will not be occupied. They remains as empty. But in case of low spin state, that means a sulfur directly linked to iron, being it is the amphidentate ligand, there is a possibility of either nitrogen or sulfur linkage to the central iron metal, right? So when sulfur linked to the iron, the possibility will be 6 electrons will be occupied in this manner. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 6th electron now entered into T2G shell. So the contribution will be T2G4 and EG2. So electrons now entered into a higher level EG, so that there is a change in its orbital orientation. T2G to AG will be varied. So in case of low spin, T2G contribution will be there. In case of high spin, A1G contribution is also there. So in this way, mu effective of this iron AsCnEt2 taken thrice changes with temperature, right? Again, we can explain the temperature effect also. This low spin complex can be conveniently showed at low temperature condition, and high spin complex can be exhibited at high temperature conditions. When temperature is lower, the linkage will be in this manner, NCS, and it will works like a low spin complex. As we are raising temperature, linkage will be modified, and sulfur linkage with iron is possible, and the arrangement of electrons will be in this manner. So this is in according with the temperature variation and the linkage of this ligand present around the central metal, so that variation is possible from low spin to high spin. T2G shifted to A1G, right? So for question number 78, option number 1 will be the right answer. Let us move on to question number 79. Here, 3 different columns are provided. We have to map one with these 2 options. All the complexes are given for nickel metal only. So this is a part of coordination chemistry, where central metal is the nickel and surrounded with hexaamino tris ethylene diamine. This is a chelating ligand. So six water ligands are there, 6 ammonia ligands are there, 3 ethylene diamine ligands are there, and moreover, the complex is in salt form, like nitrate ions are present in the outside sphere, primary valency, dinitrate anions also present. So only there is a possibility. So nitrate ions are common for all. Nickel metal is also common for all. Only the deciding factor in this will be ligand, water, ammonia, and ethylene diamine. Based on their strength, in accordance with spectrochemical series, their absorption maximum, lambda max values depends. And based on these lambda max values, so that means absorption of light from the electromagnetic radiation, their colors will be imparted, because they are able to exhibit complementary colors, right? So complementary color exhibition will be possible. In order to explain this factor, we have energy separation between ground level to excited level. Let us see. When nickel hexa aqua complex was taken, DD transition energy distance will be very low. Okay, so electrons are conveniently excited from ground level to excited because of energy gap is very less. In case of hexaamine complex, so nickel hexamine complex, so they contains moderate amount of energy transition. So energy gap somewhat larger, but not too large. But next level energy distance will be there in the lower to higher level in case of nickel hexamine complex. When we consider nickel trisethylene diamine complex, when energy separation gap will be very large energy gap in ethylene diamine kind of complex, right? That means in amount of energy required to excite the electron from this lower P2G to higher Eg level, we need to give very less amount of energy in aqua complex, moderate amount of energy required in amine complex, high amount of energy is required for ethylene diamine complex, being energy separation is very large in nature, right? So for this purpose, we can denote, we can assign the energy order of all these complexes. Aqua complex is least, ammonia complex is in between, and ethylene diamine is a higher energy kind of transition is observed. Then what is the relation between energy and wavelength? In order to predict that, we have to go with the formula is equal to h nu, which is the Planck's constant. V is given as C by lambda. Okay, so V is given by C by lambda. C is the light speed. Lambda is the wavelength of light. So E is equal to h C by lambda. What is the relation between energy and wavelength? So it is the inverse proportionality. Means as the energy rises, wavelength is gradually lowered. There is an inverse proportionality between energy and wavelength of the system. So this energy order can be entirely reversed for wavelength of absorption. For water, wavelength of absorption will be higher. That will be 675. In the given option 675, so that we have to associate with this water. Then ammonia moderate, so that in between value we have to assign for this ammonia complex, right? 650 nanometers are provided for this nickel hexamine complex, and the trisethylene diamine complex will have least value because of highest energy. Lambda max value will be least, that is 565 nanometers. Hexaquo complex is in green color, hexamine complex is in blue color, ethylene diamine complex is in violet color. So these are the colors of the complexes. Let us map with exact options. Water complex, lowest energy, highest wavelength. So X will be the right one. And always hexaquo nickel complex will be green color. A with 2, 2 with X. A with 2, 2 with X. Option 1 is there. Only option 1 is having this kind of relation, so that it will be the right answer. Let us go with remaining 2 options also. Hexamine complex, in between value we have to assign. Z is the in between value, and whose color will be blue. So nickel hexamine blue color, and its wavelength will be 16. So B21 is the right statement. Trisethylene diamine, lower wavelength, that is 565 will be the right answer for this nickel trisethylene diamine, and always it exists in violet color, right? So nickel in ethylene diamine 565, C with Y, Y with 3, C with Y, C with Y, Y with 3. So option number 1 is satisfying all these statements. For question number 79, option number 1 will be the right answer. Let us move on to question number 18, where square planar complex of iridium was given. Trans triphenyl phosphine chlorocarbonyl iridium complex. This complex now added with methyl iodide. When methyl iodide is there, what happens? Its geometry will be expanded. Square planar turned into octahedral, right? Square planar DsP2 hybridization, now it will be turned into sp3d2 hybridization by the addition of CH3I. So it turned into octahedral complex. Okay. The mechanism proceeded with SN2. Mechanism proceeded with SN2. So SN2 mechanism, always associative mechanism. Ligand will be added without any elimination of departing group, right? So this will be expansion type of reaction and associative type of mechanism. So let us see the mechanism of reaction. Methyl group will be first added so that it is converted into penta-coordinated compound. Later, one more vacant site is present on this central iridium, so that it will be accompanied by I minus. So in this manner, it will be very clear to contribute methyl and iodo in octahedral complex. Both are trans with respect to each other, then only the stability will be imparted to the compound. Because in order to associate the molecule, they should be coming in the 180 degrees angle. That is possible only in this kind of anti-addition. So both are coming perpendicular to each other. First alkyl group will be added so that one more vacant site will be there, that will be satisfied by I minus, so it is turned into a octahedral complex, right? So we have methyl iodo in transposition in only the option number 1. And in option number 4 also we have methyl iodo in the adjacent opposite position. But what happened? That initial configuration, initial orientation, initial geometry of the molecule is interchanged. This is not preferable. Two triphenyl phosphine groups are in the cis manner. So we are not going to change the already existing ligand positions. Only we are inserting methyl iodo in two axial positions. Okay, so only option number 1 is satisfying this one. For question number 80, option number 1 will be the right answer. By this, we completed series 2, where question number 71 to 80 were completed. So entire questions were discussed in the deep explanation manner. Hope it will be very much helpful. Thank you very much for your patience listening. Thank you one and all.